Hello, and welcome to the Makers.dev episode number 7. Chris, how is it going? And don't just tell me good. I need some juicy details.
All right. I painted my office, so that is done, which is great. I had some business lessons that I learned while painting too. So kind of like your puzzle, I was painting and I thought, so there's a few things. One is, so when you put up a new wall, you want to do the drywall mud, and then you need to sort of sand it and get it perfect before you put up the paint. Otherwise, you see the mistakes. And I was doing like 3, 4, 5 coats of this drywall mud. And eventually I was just like, forget it. I'm going to paint it. And then if it's bad, I will drywall mud later. And that totally worked because paint covers a lot of like sins basically. And also it also really highlights where you need to mud. And so the business lesson is basically to just ship as soon as you have something that's sort of ready.
Just
I was like,
paint
screw it,
over
I'm going
it.
to ship. Just paint it. And you fix the stuff that breaks. Yeah. So there's a lot more things I thought of too, but I definitely was like, yeah, forget it. I'm gonna just paint it and deal with it
I love
later.
that mentality. It's so easy to get caught up in, oh man, I have a crunchy way of expressing this that I haven't fully digested yet, but it's this idea of when you're asking an expert for advice, it's so easy to get caught up in all the minutia of like, oh, I need to know exactly what camera to get if I'm going to be a YouTuber, and I need to know exactly what microphone, and I have to make sure that I'm avoiding every single mistake you could possibly make before I even get started. And that's not how you be successful. You're successful by just going for it and like being okay with making mistakes. If you, it's sort of, in my own process, I've noticed, I feel like when I get caught up in that minutia, it's like an anxious response to not being okay with things not being perfect, that I need them to be perfect and I can't go forward unless I'm absolutely sure it's perfect. And so for drywall, if you're a contractor and you're doing drywall and you want to make sure that you're going to guarantee that it's going to be great every single time, you put up the putty because you have your system for how to do that, and you got your putty guy who knows how to do it, and you can streamline it, and because of all the times that you've done it, that's an activity that makes the most sense. And then if you're at a drywall convention and people ask you, hey, what's the secret to being a drywall person, you might say, oh, drywall putty. That's the differentiating factor. That's how my drywall is nice and smooth. But sort of the unexpressed perspective there is that's what's important to him right now. He's been a drywaller for 2 decades, and that's just like the most recent tip that he's come up with. But for you, who's asking that question, who's never drywalled anything before, the actual good advice, it would be much less interesting and wouldn't be as snazzy for a discussion or something. The actual advice that you should give that person who's asking that question is, the tips don't matter. Drywall, 1,000 feet of drywall, and then we'll talk about the tips and the honing it. It's so easy, and I notice this in myself more than anyone else. It's so easy to get caught up in like the refining it and the tips and the tweaks and the hacks, and I got to do this exactly perfectly. When really, just do it. If it's bad, that's fine. It's going to be bad the first 100 times you do it, and then it'll start getting better, and you can sort of pick up the tips on the way. But it's so much more important to just go forward.
That's another painting lesson that I was thinking about too, because I'm pretty good at trim, and my wife isn't. And so whenever we paint, she's like, you do the trim because I'm terrible at it. And she just thinks I'm good at it. But the real answer the real reason I'm good at it is because when I was 15, my dad made me trim the entire kitchen, and I had to do it like 5 times to get it right. So I remember spending hours and hours and hours on this, painting the ceiling basically. And that's what made me good at it. And so, same thing applies to software development. I was giving advice earlier today. Someone wants to get good at software development, and they want to do it so that they can make a product, right? And basically I was like, you just gotta right now optimize for learning and just do it. Just do a lot. And you may throw away what you build the first time, the second time, the third time, but you just keep doing it. There's no substitute for just doing it, for sure.
I think we just found today's episode: optimize for doing, just do it a lot, or optimize for learning, just do it a lot.
That's right.
That's consistently good advice, applicable to anything. That advice came up a bunch in the YouTuber class I was in yesterday. That's the advice that I give to people who are trying to learn to code. I think it absolutely applies to business. What's the absolute best marketing strategy? I don't know. Try them all. And just see where it goes. And to get to that point where you can try it all, it's sort of scary. You have to be comfortable making financial risks, and you have to get comfortable mentally with failure. That's a difficult mental hurdle to get over, but that's the generic process for how you succeed. If you want to get better at X, you do X a whole bunch of times. You optimize for reducing the cost of doing X, and you try to do X in a way where you're learning more about X every time you do it. Philosophy chats with Chris and Christian. General life advice.
There you go. That's right. How about you? How was your week?
I had a week. I don't think I'm manic depressive, and I don't think I have hypomania, but I've noticed in myself that I go through these swings of energy where some weeks I'll be very low energy, and it's very easy for me to sort of like plow through. Okay, I don't really have the desire or energy to go and like pursue new projects. What am I going to do? Okay, but I'm going to do the stuff on the list that I said I was going to do. And then I have weeks like last week where, my gosh, it feels like there's just a wild stallion in my brain that's pulling me in 7 directions at once. And I'm just along for the ride. And despite my best intentions of the plans that I've laid, I'm just going to do the thing that my brain wants me to do. And it all started immediately after we recorded our last episode last week.
You're welcome.
The idea that we talked about of being able to do the automatic video editor, Chris, I did it, and it's amazing. The thing that we were talked about, I think from episode 2, of like trying to optimize my time for if we record a 40-minute episode, trying to get my additional preparing and editing time down to as little as 40 minutes as possible. I think I've got it now to about 5 minutes, because my awesome. My gosh, it's so cool. Oh, it's so cool. Okay, so to recap, viewers who may be joining us now and didn't listen to last episode, the problem of editing this video is we could be easy with it. From a business perspective, like, we could just be uploading the video that's the two of us side by side. That would be perfectly fine. For a little higher production quality, I really like being able to switch between 3 different angles. We have the angle of just me, we have the composite angle of you and me switched together, and we have the third angle of you. And then when I'm talking, we show just me, and then you start talking, and we switch to both of us, and then after 3 seconds, we switch to you, and we go back and forth like that. That's what the Joe Rogan podcast does. I sort of stole the aesthetic from that. He has a nice like 3-camera setup, so it's a little, it's about the same in niceness. So I was thinking this is going to be a great opportunity to outsource and hire an editor and practice this thing that in the part-time YouTuber class they're saying to do. But in breaking it down in the last episode, and I was thinking about it a little bit more before that, stochastic was the wrong word. Stochastic means like randomly generated. I'm not sure what word means the opposite of stochastic. It's a procedure. It's well-defined. It's a well-defined process of when you do that, and you can do it entirely from just the audio data. Deterministic. Yes. That's the word. So it's an entirely deterministic process that just depends on the audio levels. So 10 minutes after the call, I was like, how hard would this be to get the audio levels? And I found this code from FFmpeg, which, like, of course, FFmpeg can do anything. It's just incredibly esoteric, that will output a text file of all of the audio data per frame of the video. So for every frame, you just get a number. That's the volume level for that frame. So then I started chewing of like, okay, well, I could just do this, and I need to figure out a way to like cut between the 3 angles. And so I figured out that, and then I'd slowly massage this into place. And I had an MVP of this in 2 hours. And that was in 2 hours. I not only like wrote this program to do it, but I edited the video from last time. So the video from last time and the video from this time was done with my editor. The one from last time was done in 2 hours. The one from this time, I spent a little more time polishing it. But in total, the editor that will edit this video was done in 346 minutes, which just feels amazing. Of like, I have a perfect little machine that's going to do this now. That's going to do it forever. And the people from Riverside saw your tweet about it from last week, and they reached out to me, and I had a call with them. It's Nadav Keeson and his brother and CTO Gideon is the CEO and CTO. And they were like, "Wow, what did you do? How did you do that? Can we see your code?" And in the moment, I was thinking like, "Okay, like, do I charge them for it, or do I try to license it?" But like, no, I don't want to be dealing with that. I have so much other stuff I want to be doing. I don't want to also manage a video production company or like have to maintain this code. So I was just like, "Yeah, here you go. If you have any questions, let me know." And it's going to be so much nicer for me if this feature is rolled into your product. And they were just so excited because I think this is a problem they've been thinking about of how to do it. And we were talking about like how I did the cuts, and you can do it much better if you have the entire video file than if you are trying to do it live, because you can do clever things like, a half a second before you start talking, I switch to you. So it's this nice visual cue. Oh my gosh, it's a better edit than I could make, and it takes none of my time. It's just like the M1 processor chewing on this for a while. That was so exciting. So that's how I started this last week. And from there, it just tail spun into like, I woke up the next morning and I was like, oh, I got so much done in such a small amount of time. What's another thing I could do? And I started rewriting my blog. I wanted to just like retheme it initially. And then that turned into, I accidentally wrote a new blog engine. And
of course you did.
Gosh, I sort of tongue in cheek say it's a problem. I don't actually know if it's a problem philosophically, but several other things that I'll talk about in my update. But I'm while we're still on the topic of like optimizing for this podcast, I have this dream that we not just applying to this podcast, but also applying to any sort of video interview in general, of the only time that I spend on an interview is the time that I'm actually on the interview. The notes are sort of taken care of, or it's just like little drips of time. The scheduling has happened, and that's automated scheduling, which could be a person, it could just be Calendly. And then I hit stop, and then that immediately rolls into Riverside can push files to Dropbox, but I think like in 2 weeks they'll have my code integrated in their platform. So then my automatic edit is pushed to YouTube, and then I think I would love a human person to go through and like timestamp it. So that's a spot where I could easily justify hiring someone. And then I would really like if there was another person who was clipping it and then syndicating those clips. So next month I'm going to go through an experiment with one of the social media managers for Ali Abdal's YouTube channel, Joe Gannon, a amazing young man from the UK, is starting a small media company doing this. And so he takes as input your long form videos, and then he will output clips, and he'll syndicate them on several different media channels. And it's an experiment. I don't know that like from a business perspective, I can financially justify this without seeing some return from it. But if nothing else, I would love to see what that whole framework looks like and then optimize it from there. And I talked with him about like my compulsion to just automate everything as much as possible. So he's prepared for me going to him one day and being like, hey, 70% of your time is spent on this, and now here is a machine that will do all of that for you, so you can be more effective, not just with me, but with all of your clients. That would make me so happy. So that's what I'm thinking about for this podcast.
I've been thinking about that this week too, based on our conversation last time. And there's a few things where I think you could really automate nearly everything. Although I'm not 100% sure. But basically, so when you talk about clipping in particular, so there's a few channels on YouTube that do this really well. Like Simon Sinek does it now. He has like long form content, and then he has like 2-minute, clips. And really what you're doing when you're clipping is you're trying to find a very interesting, so like either novel or a very kind of unique perspective that's precisely delivered, like in 2 minutes within a 30-minute video. I think that most of that could be done with AI transcripts of the thing, so automatic transcripts. And then this all came up because I remember this Hacker News post where it was like, submit your Hacker News headline and we'll tell you how likely it is to rank on the front page of Hacker News. And instead of that, you could build something like what's the probability that this chunk of text is interesting, where interesting might mean would get a lot of tweets, right? You have to have some deterministic way of figuring this out. But once you do that, then you could have an AI run through your video and say, these 2 minutes of automatically generated text are very highly likely to be interesting, and then automatically clip to those 2 minutes. And then maybe you have a human, review the clips or something. But yeah, so you could probably write an AI to do most of that for you, I think.
Oh my gosh, that's the one part of this process that I was thinking you absolutely need a human for, but you're totally right. you could just have an AI look at the transcript. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah.
I think so. I think now you need something to optimize for, and I think if you like digest a lot of tweets, maybe that would do it, or digest. I mean, there's sentiment analysis, so you could have like interesting as a sentiment, and then train on that. But yeah, so you need something to train your AI with, but I think you could.
You know what you could do is train it on other people's clips. So you look at all the clips made by the Joe Rogan podcast and by Simon Sinek, and then you could score them based on the number of engagements they got. You would need to get the transcript again from them, and the transcript on those videos is burned in. This is too much, but I think that's how you would solve the problem. I think I draw my line at AI, but because like that labor, I think that labor would either be cheap, or that's something that I would want to do myself, because I'm already like rewatching these episodes and enjoying being reminded of the things that we talked about and having the lessons reinforced, and then also critiquing myself of, I should say and less. And so I think if I just built a system, the way I'm thinking about this right now, if I just built a system that made it as frictionless as possible for me to, when I hear an interesting part of this podcast, mark the in and out, say what the title is, and boom. And then that flows into like a Buffer style interface. I think it's inevitable that I like recode a version of Buffer, which I'm upset about. But
I was about to say, if you want to make this into a product, you have it automatically slurps, YouTube's channels videos. They have some quick keys to cut the content, and then it automatically distributes it based on some Buffer style like thing to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and all the native, formats and everything. Yeah, you could totally turn that into a product.
The play. And then you can automatically crop it to be square and do that correctly on each one. And then if you want to get fancy, you can hire a writer. Maybe Joe. One of the things that I was talking about Joe with when he's doing this process that I hadn't considered was that the lingo on each of the platforms is slightly different. Like on some of them you use emojis, and on LinkedIn you want to be more professional, but you can use the same video on each one. So I'm curious if that's worthwhile, or if you can get away with just a single description and title on each one. But any of those possibilities could be dealt with and managed. Another thing I'd love to do, and this is a very easy win, this is something that I feel like I could do in like another 2-hour manic sprint, is right now I'm uploading this video to 2 places. I'm uploading it to YouTube and to Transistor, and I'm using the same title and I'm using the same description, and Transistor is just audio. Justin Jackson, if you're watching this, I'm about to build a thing that if you call me, I'd love to have it rolled into your product. That just did that with Riverside, where YouTube has an RSS feed. I think Overcast, or not Overcast, I'm sorry, Transistor. I think Transistor just listens to the RSS feed from YouTube and then slurps up the audio and then copies the title and copies the description, and then boom, now you have a podcast. And now the sales pitch of Transistor is, hey, the best way to have a podcast is to be doing this clipping and video thing. Don't worry about the clipping and video thing. That's whatever the bullshit Christian's making it's going to turn into. But in one click, you just point us to your YouTube channel, and no additional work from now into infinity. After you get it set up, you'll also have an audio podcast. We'll just use the audio from your YouTube video. So that's the podcast. that's the update about the meta update about what this is going on. We've already been talking for 20 minutes about it. Any other thoughts on this? And then I'd love to dive into your stuff.
No, I mean, I have lots of thoughts, but I think we can save those. Yeah. It's super interesting. I think it could for sure be like 3 different products. So I don't know what you want to do with it, but yeah.
This is a problem that I have of like, personally, I just love making stuff, We're Makers.dev. I'm not BusinessMan.Business. I more than anything else I do, like, I just love building these systems. And I was talking with my mastermind yesterday about this, of like, why are you spending your time in this low level $10 an hour work of like editing your own videos when you can just be hiring an editor in the Philippines to be doing it for you. But if I hadn't done that work, I wouldn't have been able to understand the system and break it down into its component pieces and be able to completely systematize it. And I'm going through sort of a personal struggle right now. Like, what do I want? What's my ideal? If I had just infinite money, I don't know that my day-to-day would look differently. Like, I really enjoyed solving that problem. But, I don't think Elon Musk is doing that. I don't think he's going down and writing code for the motor on a Tesla engine. I think he's working at like a higher level of abstraction. So I don't know. It's a thing that I'm philosophically chewing on, and I haven't quite settled that.
I have a few thoughts there. One is, on Art of Product, I think today, Ben Orenstein said, like he enjoys marketing actually. And so when he does things like record a podcast, it doesn't feel like work, but he feels bad about that because it's like he has something deeply ingrained that like work should be hard or something, like you shouldn't enjoy it. Which kind of sounds like what you're saying. Like you feel like, like right now you enjoy what you do every day. As long as you're happy and you're making enough money to keep you happy, then I think that's awesome, So don't feel bad about that, if you're enjoying what you're doing. The second thing you said about Elon Musk is actually interesting because he has two things going. One is he wants to get to Mars. Like he doesn't care how he does it. So that is his driving factor. Yours is different. You want to create things, it sounds like. So that's your driving factor, which is just different. The other thing is he actually does do a lot of low-level stuff, especially in the early days. And even now, like if you read his biography, he is like on the assembly line of Tesla, like every day trying to figure out exactly how to, get the, 2% improvement or whatever. And like, he knows every single inch of the, his rockets, and so like he's really in the details. The difference is he spends like over 100 hours a week working on it, so he has the ability to do that and manage the company. So I think, like you do what makes you happy. I think that's fine.
I like that. I feel better. That's a fair analysis of that he is actually diving in the deeper levels, and I didn't know that he was like on the assembly line level. That's interesting. I think it might be that the thing that I'm struggling with is that I don't have that higher level goal of I want to go to Mars, and I feel like if I set something like that, it would make this more straightforward. As a thought I'm chewing on. I don't have a nice bow to put on top of that. Okay, all right. We got to get moving. Last week, Chris, you said that you would like to make it so that users can create events and event series and RSVPs, and that it will look good. How did you do?
I got pretty far there. You can make events and event series. It looks pretty good. I'm using Tailwind CSS, which is awesome. I am fully converted from Bootstrap to Tailwind. Let's see what else. You can't RSVP, but only because we decided to sort of change sort of some fundamental things about the code. So I had to rework some of the back end. I think it's in a better place now, and we have like a much clearer vision for like basically this whole partnership with this other person is trying to figure out if is it going to work? Do we like working together? Is this going to be something that we're going to pursue long term? And so I think we're in a better position to. It's kind of like what I said about optimizing for learning. There's the episode title, right? We're learning what this product can be. Can we work on it, together? Do we have the right skills to make it work? And so a lot of what I did this week was sort of towards the goal of an experiment that we could figure out, to see if it's working. So I feel really good about that. I also did some work on async.dev. So I'm using async instead of Slack, working with this other person. We were just going back and forth with email. And so I just said, can I set up an async? She reads my tweets, so she knows about it. Anyway, so as soon as I set it up, I was like, I want to share screenshots of what I'm working on. So I spent a day allowing image uploads to async. So that works now. And it's pretty cool. I think we can use async now for everything that we would use Slack for, which is really interesting. And plus, I still have a million ideas. So yeah, so that was my week. It was pretty productive, and I felt good about it. So plus I painted my office, which I've been trying to do for a long time.
But did not use Drywall Buddy. I have been seeing the screenshots that you've been posting of Async.dev. Oh my gosh, your sense of design is superb. It just looks so nice and is so well laid out and is so logical. And it's like candy every time you post a GIF and I see it, and just like, oh, the way you're thinking through the design flows and the interactions, it's so nice. So good.
Yeah, Thanks. That's a combination of Tailwind, which makes it super easy to do it, make it super nice, and also because I really intimately know the problem I'm trying to solve, I'm just making exactly what I want. So like, I want it to work this way, and so I'm going to make it work this way, and that's one of the benefits of solving your own problem, I think.
So fulfilling, and I love that you're dogfooding this with your business partner, because that's how you get better on the product. That's a difficulty I think I've had with Fileinbox is I haven't really had that problem in a long time of needing to get big files from people. I'm sort of getting it a little bit more now that I'm doing video production, but now I think Riverside has fixed that. So I'm disconnected from the product. It's not a thing that I need anymore. And so my Mustang in my brain is drawn much more to problems that I do have viscerally in front of me. So I love that you're doing that. Have you noticed in using it, the feature queue becomes much clearer of you're using it and you want this feature to exist. You want image uploads, and so that's why you implement that next?
Yeah, so yes and no. So some features like image uploads, and like the next thing I want to be able to do is like single click video or audio or screenshot or like screen capture uploads, so that may be what I do next. But I've been keeping a list of all the things that I think I want it to do. And that list just keeps growing and growing. So I don't know what to do about that exactly. But like there are a million things now that I think I could do. Prioritizing that may be tricky, especially if I start shifting a lot of my time over to this other community work. So yeah, so now I have two projects that I really enjoy working on, and now I need to figure out how to spend the time between those two.
The TikTok we talked about. I'm curious about your method of prioritizing tasks to work on. How did you decide for image uploading that was the next most important thing to work on?
Yeah, that's because I was using it and I wanted to share an image, and so I could have emailed it to her. I could have started a Slack group, which I didn't really want to do. And so I was like, well, I need to upload an image, so I better make that. So that was that. The rest of them, like the big features, part of it is what I'm going to want to do with it. Part of it is, so I know as soon as people start using it, since I'm the user, as soon as people start using it, I know what they're going to ask for because it's things that I'm going to want. This is, and it's all pretty obvious things, and some of them are harder and some of them are easier. So I'm sort of prioritizing. There's a few different frameworks you can use for this generally, but basically like the thing that the most users are going to use and is the easiest, you should probably prioritize that. Or really, said another way, if you're trying to sell it, right? The thing that most users are going to be looking for before they buy. So like, I'm not going to buy this unless it has image uploads. Well, you better write the image uploading thing. But beyond that, it's basically like the highest impact, lowest effort. You start there and then sort of work down the list. And then the second answer is I don't really have a good way of prioritizing features. I sort of do what I want. And, yeah.
That was going to be my follow-up question of, I love the purity and the idealism of, okay, well, first sort by the impact that a feature would have on your users. And then if there's a tie, sort by the easiest features to implement. When I have tried to do that, I just feel like my soul is being crushed. Like, I don't want to implement an affiliate program. I want to implement this cool, asynchronous serverless thing because that's the problem that I'm most interested in. And I suppose that's pointing to that a worthwhile investment of money might be if I'm hiring another developer and then I can give them the tasks that are actually the most impactful and I can still be working on fun stuff. But that's a whole other set of problems. So it sounds like for images, for image uploading that was a thing that came up that you wanted, that you were excited about in the moment implementing, because okay, well, now this is a thing that will immediately help you in sending images to your business partner. And the way you implemented it is, oh, it's gorgeous. It's so, all the little touches and like the rounded corners, and oh my gosh, it's beautiful. Okay, I'm curious, for the perfect pure method of sort your features by the impact they would have of features that your users are asking for, and then by ease. Do you have that list somewhere? Are you keeping track of those features sorted like that? What's that next feature that's the most impactful and easiest?
Yeah. So the way I do it when I'm solo on a project, I just keep a notebook, like a physical pen and paper notebook. That's the way I like to do it. And it's I don't really like keeping a list that I keep flipping back to. Like, so the way I end up doing it is I write my list and I keep adding to it. I guess there's two ways. Okay. So the notebook way is I write my list and keep adding to it. And eventually I get a couple pages ahead, and I've written, like, I also do like designs in this book. I write out like, I also write out like how I'm feeling about each feature and how I'm feeling about the business in general. That like helps. So it's sort of like a business journal as well as a to-do list. And then eventually I get a few pages away from my to-do list. And then what I do is I make a whole new to-do list. So I never go back to the old one, and I just write down now how, what are the highest priority things. And this is a little bit like the Basecamp's shape up thing, where they say basically get rid of the feature backlog. Basically every few days I'm several pages ahead in my journal, and so I start a new to-do list basically, and I remember the things that are important. So like, because like every day I'm like thinking about them, and so I don't have things that are 4 months old. I have things that are 4 days old, and so my to-do list is only a few days old ever. And I like that a lot because it really helps me prioritize the things that I know are important. And so if I'm copying something over from a to-do list, like several times, then I know it's important and I haven't done it yet, and so I can prioritize that. So that's kind of how I do that for solo projects. I also keep like long-term to-do list, like ideas, in just the Notes app in Apple. So I have like a whole list of blogs, like blog articles I could write. I have a whole list of future directions I could take this, like future features that I want to remember but aren't important enough to go in the 4-day to-do list. So those are kind of that's the short-term and the long-term way I do it. How do you do it? Do you just do whatever you feel like? That's what it sounds like.
No, not always. I keep feature backlogs, which is a holdover, I think, from the David Allen's Getting Things Done system of anytime you have an idea, capture it and then have it flow into buckets, and then anytime you need inspiration or you're looking for a direction to go, you have this wellspring of every thought you've ever had about this topic. And that can be overwhelming, because now when I'm looking at the feature backlog of things I want to do for Fileinbox, okay, well, that's a thing I've been working on for 8 years. There's 8 years of all my little drips of feature ideas and directions that I could take the product that are these huge branches that have just been completely ignored. That then my creativity just goes into hyperdrive of like, oh my gosh, we could make a whole new product off this branch. And I haven't read Shape Up yet. I need to. I've used a similar system to the process you're describing of not keeping the backlog and just rewriting whatever's top of mind. In doing my weekly review, I've been doing goal setting every day, and every day I write down the things I want to do for the next 8 days. And then when I fill that page, I go to a new page, and I rewrite all my goals for the month. And I still sort of like look back at the goals that I've had. But it's been very interesting seeing how my compulsions of the things that I want to work on that I'm most excited about change month to month and week to week, because I'll get possessed by this idea of, oh man, you know what I really need to do? I need to buy an Arduino and make a pull-up counter, and it's going to beep, and it's going to have all these, and anytime I go up, it's going to have a little sensor that's the proximity sensor. And I will get so excited about that on the day that I have it. And then a week later, like, I don't care. It's just, it's not even a thing on my radar. And seeing the projects that are able to push through, that I'm still excited about them week to week, makes it clear the ones that are bubbling to the surface that are actually important. And so I haven't connected those two systems yet. I have my one system of, okay, for projects, I keep track of to-dos, and I just keep track of every to-do idea I've ever had for that. And I've seen a lot of success in this short-term goal setting of doing more of the, have a higher filter on those ideas, and only do the ones that you're excited about in the long term. I would like to systematize connecting those two ideas. I still want to be collecting and storing all the ideas that I have. I think those are all potentially useful things, but I don't want that to get me distracted when I'm in worker mode. I'm missing a little piece of like, okay, maybe, I don't know, maybe once a month I read every idea I've ever had, and then from memory I write down, 5 things that I'm interested in pursuing for the next month, and then I don't know, maybe day to day or week to week I pick one from that. The problem is I never really have the problem of not having something to work on. I always have an idea for a thing I could be doing.
Yeah.
So maybe this is more a problem of prioritizing the work that I'm doing, that prioritizing those features should look like that I'm going through some sort of a matrix hierarchy of, okay, these are probably the ideas that have the most benefit, and then I'm lifting those up instead of just letting enthusiasm guide what I'm doing. Those are my thoughts around that. That's my not quite fully formulated system. I'm excited to rewatch this episode in like a year and have the perfect system of, you were just missing this piece to move from one step to the other.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit about what you said was a little like Shape Up. So it'd be interesting if you read it. It's like, they basically decide what they're going to do for 6 weeks. And then during those 6 weeks, they're, not distracted. They finish the things that they said they were going to do. I rewatched something by Michael Seibel, who was, or maybe still is, the CEO of Y Combinator. So he said when they were at Justin TV, they did terribly at this at the beginning. They were 4 people, and they just fought about features for a long time, and eventually they stumble upon sorting by priority, by impact and ease of development. So that was one thing, and then the second thing was they had meetings every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks they had one meeting. They decided what they were going to do for 2 weeks, and then they did that. Like they didn't make any changes no matter what happened in those 2 weeks. And then during the next meeting, they could talk about all the ideas that they had, and then they set another 2-week goal. And maybe, that's different because you're solo, you don't have a team, but, you could say like, I'm going to work on this. So I say that, but as soon as I say that, I'm like, but you're probably going to get a good idea, like editing this, changing this video or editing this video with FFmpeg, and just want to do it. So I don't know, maybe, during certain hours, you only do the things that you decided on a week ago or something like that. I don't know. Yeah.
I like that. And I've seen huge benefit from using that system of tying yourself to the mast, going month to month in the moments when I feel this compulsion to like, this whole different direction. I've started a loose rule for myself. I've broken it a few times of I can only change my goals for next month. I can't change them for the month I'm currently in. The month that I'm currently in, those goals are set. Those are the things I'm working on for this next month. And then as soon as I finish those, as soon as I move into the next month, okay, well now I picked my top goals from the goals that were jumping on all over the place, and now those are set, those are frozen. And if I have a new idea, okay, great, I can do that for next month. I think the problem that we're touching on is I'm sort of working through this with conflicting motivations. On the one hand, I would like to be growing my business and doing things that are the most impactful, that are helping my users the most. And on the other, it's very important for me to be enjoying the work that I'm doing. And I loved the project of making the automated video editor. That was I was completely in flow. It was just delightful. I had this great call with the founders this morning where they were so impressed, and my ego was like, oh, I'm such a good coder. Optimizing for the work is very different than optimizing for business success. For the people working on Justin TV, They have a team. There's a boss. The boss is deciding the direction to go in. The boss is not principally concerned with if his engineers are having a good time or working on work that they feel the most passionate about. The CEO's job is to set the direction of the ship that's going to make the ship go the fastest and furthest. And that's a conflict I'm feeling of. I am the CEO driving the ship. That's a thing that I want to be optimizing for. And also, I am the person doing right now most of the work. And I don't yet have a way of formalizing how to balance those two motivations. I think I tend to slip into optimizing for fun work, and I'm getting better at setting a higher level direction and doing work, even if it's not the most exciting, just getting started and doing the work. Horribly failed on that this last week. And oh my gosh, it was such a fun week. I got so many fun little stupid projects done. Yeah. That's the thing I'm grappling with.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer. I mean, you're in a unique position where Fileinbox, seems like it pays your bills and you don't have to do that much upkeep. So that's just a super nice position to be in. I have a similar position in that I saved up money while consulting this year so that I could build my own products, right? And so I have runway now, and I don't want to waste it, but I also want to optimize for being, happy in what I'm coding. And so I don't know. I don't have the solution either.
Let's continue to explore this problem together on future episodes of Makers.dev.
Sounds great.
I am going to go through my update swiftly. We've been chatting for an unusually long amount of time. Something that I did do that was a goal that I set last week was interview the sign printers. I set those up and have my great system of they book and just go directly on my calendar. I had 3 interviews booked. I talked with 2 of them, and one of them, from a failure on my part, I let customer support emails totally drop this last week. So I could have done more of those calls if I'd been on the ball with that. But the 2 interviews that I had were great. And I have a much clearer picture of who sign printers are. I talked with 2 of my customers, George and Edward, who have been my customers for years, for 6 or 7 years. And I got this fantastic persona description from one of my customers of who the type of person is who does sign printing. First of all, they said there's this schism between people who do sign printing, who are more legitimate, and there's t-shirt printers. He said sign printers are usually people who have started another business, and this is just a side thing for them. And he told me his own personal story. He had a vape shop that he started, and he got a quote for some signs. He wanted to do a whole bunch of signs for marketing, and he was aghast at the prices that they were charging him. And so he Googled how much the printer was that he was gonna that would print one of these signs, and it was $40,000. And in his words, man, he went yeehaw cowboy and just bought it. And then he has a sign printer, so he was able to print all his signs. But you have a $40 sign printer, you're gonna use it. So he spun up another website and now print signs for people. And the second person I talked to seems like they print signs sort of as a secondary piece of their business, and it's more focused on marketing. So I'm very interested in these as people. They seem very entrepreneurial and very systems oriented, and very interested in making processes more efficient. And that's what I'm all about. So it seems pretty cool. Maybe, so contrasting with t-shirt printers are people who were in a band and printed some t-shirts for their band, and then the band failed, but they're still printing t-shirts out of their garage. So maybe not t-shirt printers, maybe sign printers. And had a bonus call that was just a support call of a vice principal of a school in Toronto who had emailed me and signed up for my $100 a month plan, and emailed me 4 times in an hour asking about a specific question of how to get something set up in the product. And I answered his question a little bit, but then emailed back and was just let's hop on a call because we can sort this out. And I felt amazing during that call because it was like I was inside of a commercial for Fileinbox. He like explained who he was and the problem he was having and all the things that he tried and like, all the questions for conducting a user interview. He was just giving me the answers for those, and then he had one problem and he was very polite about like, I'm trying to get it to do this thing, and I was like, oh yeah, you do it like this, and he just went on for like 30 seconds about, oh, the secretaries are gonna love you, oh, this is amazing. His face lit up. So I felt so cool. I felt like, hey, I'm doing a thing. You know, I'm not an investment banker just moving money around. I'm helping people's lives, and I'm making some secretaries in Toronto very happy. So that was very cool. Small aside,
That's really cool.
I was struggling to figure out who the MicroConf talk recap, who had given that speech in the last episode. You very politely did not say anything. It was you. it was your talk I was referencing.
Yeah, as soon as you said that last time, I thought it might be my talk, but there have been several talks given about how to conduct user interviews,
yes.
And mine was just one of them.
So,
yes. Yeah.
A second one that I also looked at the notes of, talking about. Oh my gosh, I'll link it in the show notes. But there's a few good talks on this. Also reread part of the mom test, and what a great book. I need to reread that like once every 6 months. What else? There's a few more interviews that I want to be doing. I'm really enjoying the free-form nature of these conversations, just sort of holistically understanding these people better. I have approached user interviews in the past with a list of questions and trying to set them up for giving me answers of like, how do you find products, and what did you consider before this? And that felt so stilted, but that's what I was doing because I didn't really know what else to do. And with these 2 calls that I had, I went in just very genuinely. I'd like to get to know you better. And we talked a lot about Fileinbox. And in the beginning of the conversation, I think they were expecting that I wanted to know a lot about that. But then it drifted into, oh, how are you? And how's your family? Like, what else are you doing? Very interesting people. They're very cool. I feel like I've made 2 new friends. I have an open invitation to go stay with this dude on his couch. And I think he's in North Carolina and just hang out. So like, that's cool. I'd like to be taking customer interviews much more chill and just like picking up information. And as part of that process, just by being sort of relaxed about it and letting the conversation flow naturally, I got 4 killer feature ideas of like, of course I need a mobile app that has sharing enabled so that you can share a file from any app. That makes so much sense. Of course that's a thing I need to do. Credit card payments came up naturally. That was a thing that one of my customers suggested would be a killer feature because that's a thing that they're struggling with is in this flow. The way they phrased it specifically was when they have a customer on the phone, they need to get graphics from them and they would love to accept payment right then. So if he could send them a link that was both of those things at the same time with this sort of weird vector graphics format of a huge file, that's striking while the iron's hot. And he said, if you let it go and if you're trying to do this over email, it gets cold and then they forget about it and then they don't want their sign anymore. So anything I can do to get that ball rolling and get it done as quickly as possible is that would meaningfully move the needle on the business value that this is creating. So my hunch last week of maybe I accept payments, that might be a direction that I go in. I'm hesitant to make that a move. But that's those are my insights from my 2 customer interviews. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you said a ton of great stuff in there. So payments, I think, the closer you get to money transacting, the more you can charge, or the more real visceral value that your product will have. So yeah, like Stripe has Stripe Connect. I don't know if you've seen that, but that's a way that you could do payments that maybe move the risk off of you and onto Stripe, for example.
Yep.
So there's other ways as well, but you also, like, one thing I can't remember where I heard this, but like even business to business software is not bought by businesses. It's bought by people at businesses. And so I think your approach, like going in, just like having a chill conversation with like these people, especially entrepreneurial, like, solo or small businesses, like really just getting to know the people is like super valuable. It's fun and also super valuable because the software is bought by them. It's not, some corporate entity deciding it, So yeah, I think that's a great way to do, especially small business customer interviews. Just have a conversation. Yeah, I think that's really a good way to do it.
It felt much better too. I'm looking forward to the next sort of call that I would have like that. And the way that I was doing customer interviews before felt like work. It felt like, okay, we're both putting our business hats on, and we're nothing personal going on here. But like, I found out all about one of my customers' 11-year-old dachshunds that he got from his girlfriend, who got it from her ex-husband, and he told me the whole story of the dog and how the dog is like, that's delightful. I don't know that it directly feeds into like actionable things for Fileinbox, and that's okay. I've deepened my conversation with this person. I've made a new friend, and in the process of doing that, incredibly valuable from a business perspective. That was the conversation where he gave me the idea for having a native app that shares, which, like, of course, what an obvious idea. I love it. Cool. That's pushing forward on the Fileinbox front. The only reason I got anything done on Fileinbox this week, by the way, is that I tied myself to the mast. Like, these were interviews that were scheduled. the ball was already put in motion. Let's go rapid fire a little bit through some of the other shit I did this week. I made the automatic video editor. That was 346 minutes over the last week. There's a board game called Cash Flow that is like a version of Monopoly where everyone can win. That's all about real estate. It's the board game version of the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. I spent 160 minutes. There's this very complicated form that you have to fill out, and it's the balance sheet. And anytime you want to do a transaction in the game, it takes like 6 minutes and all this math, and you got to flow numbers all the way through. So the whole time I played this game a few times this last week with housemates and on a date. It was a great date. It was so much fun. And so let's come back. Oh, there we go. So I put 160 minutes into making this as a Rails app or a React app, and it was so much fun. It was just itching at my brain every single time I filled out the numbers. I was thinking, oh my, this could just be a React function, and this is a view, and so I did it, and it was great. I redesigned my blog and accidentally wrote a blog engine. This is a thing that's been itching at my brain for the last decade that I finally did, and it's so nice to just know every single piece of it and not have to pull up the Jekyll documentation of, okay, I'm trying to do this weird thing, and I don't know, is it a page or is it a post? It's Ruby code, and it's markdown files over here, and here's the function that processes them, and here's how that flows, and then it generates HTML over here. Oh, it's so nice. In the process of doing that, I wanted to use Tailwind because Tailwind is amazing. I had to implement the post CSS parser that minifies the Tailwind. I understand that so much better now. It's just doing a regex expression for things that could be class names, and then stripping out any of the classes that don't do that. So while doing this, it's just such a bespoke, just beautiful. I feel like it's a reflection of me. It's a blog that I'm so proud of, and the one I have right now is dated. I redesigned it, I think maybe 5 years ago. I am so proud of this new one. It's a custom font it's this monospace font. That's the font that I use everywhere. Oh my gosh, it's just it's so nice. I love it. Makes probably no sense from a financial or business perspective, but it just made me so happy. So I spent 293 minutes on that last week. The pull-up counter Arduino project that I mentioned, that was a real thing. All the parts are sitting on my desk right now. I want to work on it so badly, and there's so much. That's my reward after I do all the things I need to do today. And then I spent 43 minutes polishing up. There were 2 feature requests that my magician friend had for a magic app that I made for him. That I'm very happy I was able to polish that out in 43 minutes. And then total on Fileinbox last week was 130 minutes, but that was mostly spent on that was mostly spent on the interviews. A thing that I'm thinking about in doing these time audits of myself is a question that came up yesterday in my mastermind group of thinking about spending my time on $10 an hour versus $50 an hour versus $200 an hour activities. I'm thinking much more critically about what were the places that I spent my time last week that were $200 an hour activities that I'd like to be optimizing for, and where are the places that I can be pushing out more work. I found out as part of doing this class, do you know how much it costs? I'll take your random ballpark figure to hire a full-time employee from the Philippines working 40 hours a week for 52 weeks.
Your figure last week was $2 an hour. That's probably pretty close. But
$2 an hour. So I think the rule is you double it and then add 3 zeros. So that would be $4,000 a year. Is that about right?
Yeah.
It's double that. It's $8,000. Oh my gosh, for a human person working, I don't know how I would fill that person's time, but that sure is a thing I'm thinking about. Of the places. Anytime now I'm doing something that I don't want to be doing, or I feel like is a thing that doesn't quite make sense for me to outsource to a computer to totally formalize that system that I'm not enjoying. That's I feel like I could instruct a person to do it. I've bumped down my threshold of tolerance for those things. Now I'm trying to catalog those. Have you experimented with that? Have you tried a personal assistant? I think I asked you a question about this last week.
Yeah, no, so it was a big thing at MicroConf a few years ago, and so I looked into like VAs and stuff. No is the answer. Like there are things that I think I don't do things often enough that are repeatable enough that I would need a VA for. Also, I'm not like an executive, so I don't have things like I don't book a lot of travel. Yeah. I don't do a lot of things that are like that repeatable. Yeah. And also, I kind of like doing things myself. Like I'm soundproofing my own stupid office, you know. Like I don't, I could have paid someone probably $2,000 to come in and do it. Probably more than that, I guess. But but instead I did it myself, right? So that's sort of my like how I operate.
Cool. That resonates with me a lot. I think I'm struggling to find that balance. I feel like I could be outsourcing more things. And I still recognize within myself that I enjoy doing things myself. I'm gonna love every second of working on this pull-up counter project. It's like Legos, but you get a useful thing at the end. Yeah. And there are physical things that I enjoy doing. I would love to figure out drywall. That seems like that's a thing I want to be good at. I'm gonna use that drywall putty. I'm gonna make it nice and smooth in the middle. Yeah. All right. Cool. That's all I got.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, if you would have tried to pay someone to do our video editing, it would have taken you probably 2 hours to figure out how to pay someone to do it and explain it. And in that time, you wrote something that'll do it for you. So there's always that tension, like the thing that you thought took you a lot of time actually led to something that is going to take way less time and $0. Yeah. So
maybe you doing the drywall leads to you making a robot that just solves drywall for everyone in the future. Each little drywall robot.
I don't know. Like you see the people who are good at drywall. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos before I did it. That's pretty much how I learn everything now. And the people who are good at it are really good at it. Like there is a drywall robot actually. I think it's out of Germany or something, and it takes much longer and costs more money than just hiring people to do it. And maybe eventually it doesn't, but the people who do drywall are just really good at drywall. Yeah,
cool, huh? You've got me curious now. I want to be a person good at drywall. That sounds like fun. Cool. That's all I got.
That's all I got too.
Then I will see you next week. Goodbye.
All right. See you next week.